The streets of Ouagadougou were alive with noise that day, car horns blaring, vendors shouting, life rushing forward as usual. But then, amid the chaos, Ibrahim Traoré saw something that stopped him in his tracks. A young woman, no older than 25, sat on the cold pavement, her clothes torn, her swollen belly a silent cry for help. She wasn't holding a sign. She wasn't even calling out. She just stared at the ground, clutching her stomach, as people walked past like she didn't exist. In that moment, Traoré realized this wasn't just a stranger's problem. It was a test. For most, it was just another busy afternoon in Burkina Faso's capital. The markets overflowed with bright fabrics and the scent of grilled meat. Life seemed normal, but beneath the surface, things were far from it. Rising food prices, deep poverty, and decades of corruption had left thousands desperate, forgotten by those in power. And yet, Ibrahim Traoré was no ordinary passerby. At just 35 years old, he was a president, a man who had promised to bring dignity back to his people. But that day, there were no cameras, no flashing lights, no aides clearing the way. Just Ibrahim, walking among his people, try to understand their struggles firsthand. That's when he saw her, a young woman crouched on the side of the road, barefoot, her skin pale and cracked under the harsh sun. Her belly was so large it looked like the baby could come any moment. Beside her lay a plastic bowl, empty except for a few coins and dust. People walked by without a glance. Some even sneered. To them, she was just another beggar, one of many who had slipped through cracks. But Ibrahim couldn't look away. Something about her eyes, hollow, lifeless, yet still holding a flicker of hope, pierced his soul. He slowed his steps. Questions raced through his mind. Who was she? Why was she here? And why did it feel like the entire country's struggle was staring back at him through this one woman? He had a choice. Keep walking like everyone else, or do something that would change everything. Ibrahim approached slowly, his boots crunching on the gravel. The closer he got, the more he noticed the trembling of her hands, the faint bruise on her arm, the way her thin frame seemed ready to collapse under the weight of life itself. She didn't look up. Then he saw it. A faded hospital bracelet on her wrist. His heart tightened. She had been discharged recently, probably because she couldn't afford to stay. The world around him seemed to blur. He remembered stories his mother told him about women dying during childbirth because they couldn't afford care. He remembered the cries of villagers who lost loved ones simply because there were no resources. And now this wasn't a story. It was real right in front of him. He knelt down. "Madam," he said softly, but she didn't respond. Her lips were dry, her breathing shallow. Ibrahim reached into his pocket instinctively, pulling out every note he had. He placed the money gently in her bowl. But as he stood up, he realized money wouldn't be enough. He scanned the street. People were watching now, whispering. Some recognized him, their eyes widening. A soldier kneeling before a beggar. It was an image they'd never seen before. But Ibrahim didn't care. He waved for a security detail, who rushed forward nervously. "Find a car. Now," he ordered. Within minutes, the woman was being lifted gently into a vehicle, her head resting against a seat as tears rolled silently down her cheeks. As the convoy sped through the city, Ibrahim stared out the window, fists clenched. This wasn't an isolated case. This was the reality for thousands of women across Burkina Faso, women who carried life inside them yet were treated as disposable. He made a decision right there, in that car, a decision that would shake the entire nation. By nightfall, Ibrahim stood in front of the cameras, not as a politician, but as a man who had seen the truth with his own eyes. His voice trembled with emotion as he spoke. "Today, I met a woman who reminded me why we fight. Not for power, not for titles, but for life. She was 9 months pregnant, sitting on the street, begging for survival. This cannot happen, not in my country, not under my watch." The silence in the press room was deafening. Then he dropped the announcement that stunned the world. From this day forward, no woman in Burkina Faso will be left to beg for care. Every pregnant woman will receive free medical treatment. Full stop. And we will build homes for those abandoned on the streets, starting now. Social media exploded. People couldn't believe it. Leaders across Africa called it impossible. But Ibrahim didn't just talk, he acted. The very next day, construction crews broke ground on shelters for homeless mothers. Hospitals received emergency funding. Mobile clinics began rolling through rural areas. And the woman he found on the street? She was resting safely in a maternity ward, with doctors ensuring both she and her child would survive. It wasn't just policy. It was a promise kept. A revolution born out of one moment of compassion. Weeks later, the woman gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She named him Ibrahim. The story spread like wildfire, not because the president helped someone in need, but because he changed an entire system. For the first time in decades, hope felt real. Mothers began coming forward for care, without fear of debt or rejection. Families stopped losing loved ones to preventable complications. And that image, the leader kneeling before a pregnant woman, became a symbol of humility and power used for good. It hung in schools and homes, even in hospitals, as a reminder that leadership means service. But Ibrahim knew the fight wasn't over. Poverty couldn't be erased overnight. Injustice wouldn't vanish with a single law. Still, that day proved something. One act of courage could ignite a movement. And so, as he looked at little Ibrahim in the hospital crib, his tiny chest rising and falling, Traoré whispered to himself, "This is why we fight." Now, I want to ask you, what would you have done if you were in his place? Walk away or change a life forever?